up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as I was doing myself, a jam-packed show, as we have a lot of volleyball to discuss. We're in the Sweet 16 of the NCAA Women's Volleyball Division I tournament. As it was all shot, except for one quadrant, Cal Poly coming out of nowhere and upsetting BYU and USC. How did those Mustangs ride high, and what can we expect from them going into the Sweet 16? Their first Sweet 16 in 18 years. Also, we have a new champion crowned in NCAA Women's Volleyball Division III. Yes, Juniata isn't going to be repeating, but who is the new champion in NCAA Women's Volleyball Division III? And the NCAA Division II Women's Volleyball Championship is going to be next week as they're in the Elite 8. The NAI Women's Volleyball Championship is happening right now. And NCAA Men's Volleyball season is getting closer as Long Beach State has named its new men's volleyball coach. Hand me the volleyball. Set to that. Because I'm about to go get the volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on iSports Radio. Your feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday, wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made it away in episode 328 of Set Point. Without any further delay, let's begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without iSports Radio providing the platform to go live on YouTube, Twitch, and on X. Please do follow iSports Radio on several different social media platforms such as X, TikTok, and Instagram. Also, make sure you subscribe to iSports Radio on YouTube. We would greatly appreciate it. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers and beyond. And with your help, we could definitely make it happen. So please do follow iSports Radio. If you're a fan of sports like basketball, football, volleyball, motorsports or auto sports, hockey, soccer, fantasy football, the list goes on and on. For the last 11 years, iSports Radio is bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, like I pretty much did last week, to building tailor-made sports shows dedicated to all sports around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout out to our sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Vital Apparel. So without any further delay, let's get on in to what our sponsors are all about. I'll see you on the other side.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clinking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go. For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out all of our amazing sponsors and also check out all of our shows on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. And the way you can follow Setpoint on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at @set_point_IE, as well as on TikTok. I got to get back to posting on TikTok as well. Tried to get it through this weekend, but unfortunately just got caught up in other things. You can also follow me personally on X as well, at Teran Rodriguez 1. You can also follow Setpoint on Instagram as well, at set_point_IESR. So without any further delay, let's get on into the volleyball action. So, all right. So it's NCAA Women's Volleyball Tournament time. And, man, it is live and popping. So most of the rounds were pretty much all chalk, except for one round. And that was the Los Angeles quadrant, which, man, first and foremost, thank you to USC for hosting. It was absolutely amazing. I could not be more happy to pretty much be there in attendance. It was outstanding, like it's pure cinema. So let's recap the Los Angeles quadrant. So we'll start off with the first matchup, BYU versus Cal Poly. All right, this one, I don't know what everyone was thinking doubting Cal Poly, as Cal Poly, I thought they were a very, 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 very sneaky team. And I actually had them upsetting BYU in the first round for the most part. And first set, they looked pretty good. They wound up winning the first set 25-19. And Cal Poly was just lighting it up. Chloe Lelouch was looking like her Chloe Lelouch self. She had 5 kills. And overall, this Cal Poly team just looked good. BYU wasn't playing bad. I just think that BYU just looked pretty darn, I wouldn't say they looked bad, but they were just a little bit of a step behind, especially when the set kept progressing. So Cal Poly took the first set. Then the second set, BYU just looked a little bit more like its BYU self. BYU took the second set 25-17. Personally, I think BYU just showed why they were a sneaky good team coming out of the Big 12. I think BYU was more ready in this set. I thought Sue Lee Davis was just absolutely on fire, as well as Claire Little Chambers. I think Cal Poly kind of got their bell rung in that second set. And then the third set, I think that's when BYU kind of started hitting their strides more. their offense was just clicking on all cylinders as Brielle Kamaver, remember that name, really good middle blocker. She was just hitting at all sorts of angles on the court. BYU eventually took that third set 25-20, which kind of had me worried. I was like, okay, looks like BYU's starting to look like their BYU self. Kendall Bashir was just doing all that she can. Even when her jump serves were not hitting, I thought she was just on one in terms of her offense. Emma Frederick also kind of backed her up as well. And then the fourth set, Cal Poly, again, they started to look like Cal Poly. This was desperation time. And I'm thinking to myself, if Cal Poly pushes this one to a fifth set, I like their chances. And that's what Cal Poly did. They won the fourth set. Again, their offense was just clicking. Chloe Lelouch just rising to the occasion. Emma Frederick also rising to the occasion. Cal Poly was hitting 315 through 4 sets, which I was generally impressed about. And they were outblocking BYU 10-3, which was very impressive. And late in that fourth set, this was kind of the key. Claire Little Chambers did suffer an ankle injury. She kind of landed on someone's foot, and it kind of looked a little scary at first, but she eventually came back in the fifth set. Unfortunately for BYU, it just did not work. It wasn't enough, as Cal Poly did take that fifth set 15-10. Look, once they got a little separation, Cal Poly just was not going to relinquish that lead. And this just goes to show that they just really hit the clutch in terms of their serving. Kendall Bashir, particularly in that fifth set. I'm just going to say this. Kendall Bashir in the set 5 is probably scary hours if you're facing against Cal Poly. So overall for Cal Poly, it was a great win for them. People didn't believe in them. I was maybe one of the few people that believed in Cal Poly, as Kendall Bashir led the way with 20 kills. She only had 2 hitting errors, which was pretty darn good. Emma Frederick added 15 kills. Chloe Lelouch added 11 kills. And then Annabelle Falcon chipped in 9 kills. As a team, Cal Poly hit 311. They had 12 blocks, and they outblocked them 12-5, which was pretty good. And they outdug BYU 72-65. They out-aced them 7-5. And again, they missed a bunch of serves, but honestly, Cal Poly, they were just the overall stronger team. Now again, BYU, them kind of getting their bell rung, seeing Claire Little Chambers go down with an injury. I won't say that was the big reason why BYU lost, but it was a fragment of the reason why BYU lost, as Sully Davis led the way with 18 kills. And yes, her name is pronounced Sully Davis, not Sully Davis, so that's my bad on that. Brielle Kamaver added 15 kills, Claire Little Chambers 14 kills, and Sophia Callahan 10 kills. It was just not enough for the Cougars. So this is the second straight year that BYU has been booted out of the first round. So I'm just going to also say that right there. I mean, it was the first 8 years with Heather Olmstead, or I think it was like 6-8 years with Heather Olmstead. They were pretty much untouchable in the first round. And then last year when they lost to Loyola Chicago, that was kind of where the dominoes just started falling down. So now it's a second straight first round exit for BYU. And man, that's just tough if you're the Cougars. I mean, they'll be back. I mean, their setter did hit the transfer portal. Alex Bauer did hit the transfer portal, but unfortunately for BYU, they're just going to have to rebuild. And Claire Little Chambers also graduates. So it's a tough way to go out if you're BYU. It sucks, but honestly, it is what it is. And I just thought there was something about BYU's inconsistency that really just made me think this team isn't all of that cracked up to be. And I just felt that Cal Poly had the best chance to upend them, and they did so. So kudos to Cal Poly. And yeah, people now know what Cal Poly has in store for everybody. The second match was Princeton versus USC. And look, I'm just going to make this a long story short. First set, USC got off to a slow start, but then after winning that first set, they pretty much just kicked it into overdrive and wound up winning set 2 and 3 quite convincingly. So USC For being a 3-set match, they had 3 different players with 10 or more kills, being London Weejay leading the way with 12 kills, Adania Falmuina and Abigail Mullen added 11 kills. USC as a team, they hit 453, which was very nice. They had 9 service aces, 4 of which came from Mullen, 3 of which also came from Megan Verbeest. And Gala Trubin actually got the start at libero as Taylor Deckert was out with an ankle injury. It wasn't long-term, as you're about to see in the next match, but overall, this was just USC women's volleyball playing super clean for the most part. And then Princeton, they were led by Valerie Nutakor and Lucia Scalamadre, both having 6 kills. Long story short, this was pretty much not Princeton's night, but they wound up winning the Ivy League tournament, and they represent the Ivy League well. And unfortunately for Princeton, they just had a rough day at the offense. I thought maybe they could have, maybe they could have given USC a little bit of a scare because USC has a younger team than normal. But unfortunately, that was just not the case as the women of Troy advanced to the second straight round. So it was Cal Poly USC. And honestly, this was a doozy of a matchup. So not a lot of people, everybody and their mothers had Cal Poly losing in the second round or the first round. Cal Poly said, and then I took that personally, as Cal Poly took the opening set 25-19. Long story short, Cal Poly didn't trail in this set. There was only one tie as well. Cal Poly just came with a fire lit inside them, and the Mustangs just were raring to go as they had Annabelle Falcon leading the way after that first set. It was so bad. I wouldn't say it was so bad for USC, but USC just was not on its A game in the first set, as their kill leader through that first set was Riley McGinnis, not London Weejay, not Abigail Mullen, not Adania Falmuina, Riley McGinnis, their middle, which, man, USC really needed to adjust. And that's what Cal Poly does. They force you to adjust and go different ways. And that's something you don't really see from USC, especially since USC is a young team. So second set, I was thinking in the back of my mind, USC needs to win this set. And they actually led 15-12 at the media timeout, but for Cal Poly, they wound up cranking it up to 11. They wound up winning the points that they needed to win. And ever since trailing 15-12, Cal Poly outscored USC 13-5, which, man, if you're USC, that set I thought slipped through USC's fingers. I thought Cal Poly was getting their way. I thought USC was making mistakes. So Cal Poly is up 2-0. And normally you see this from USC. They're dropping the first set. They dropped the first set against teams like Washington. They dropped the first set against teams like Northwestern. They dropped the first set against a team like Oregon. USC always starts slow, and that's due to them having a young team. So them being down 0-2 is just different territory because more often than not, most of the times they were down 0-2, they always lost, no matter who it was against. But then the third set, USC kind of woke up, and they eventually took the third set 25-20. They actually didn't trail, and there was only 2 ties as Abigail Mullen was just doing her best Supergirl impersonation as she was literally having to carry the team for the most part. Leah Ford also stepped up. One player who I thought was a key contributor was Mia Taverdi. She had 5 kills in that set alone. 5 kills in that all-important third set. Now, Mia Taverdi is a amazing player off the bench, and I think she provides a spark. If you saw the Oregon game where USC was down the set against Oregon and they just needed a spark, Brad Keller went to Taverdi and she wound up delivering. She had 5 kills, 6 swings, no errors. Mia Taverdi was on a mission, and I'm kind of surprised that Keller didn't go with her to start with. I'm surprised he went with, that's understandable going with Leah Ford and Riley McGinnis based off of experience. But honestly, I think you go with the player that is giving you more points and that's providing a spark. And then the fourth set, it was tight early on, and then USC really started kicking into overdrive once they crossed double digits. They wound up just blowing Cal Poly out of the water in set 4, 25-14, and suddenly it went 5. So, man, USC, I had a feeling USC was going to come with a little bit of sense of urgency, because if USC had any sort of pride left in them, I knew they were not going to get beaten on their home floor that easily. Because look, to be down 0-2 on your home floor is one thing to like a team like a Nebraska, like a Indiana or Purdue, but against Cal Poly, who was unseeded, that was kind of interesting. But USC had brought it back. I was very impressed by them and their resolve. But in the third set, USC did actually lead 3-2. I'm thinking to myself, does USC have enough in the tank? No, they did not. Once Kendall Bashir stepped up to that service line, she was not missing her jump serves by any means necessary. USC was up 3-2. Eventually, it was like 8-3, and then it was like 10-4, 10-3. Like Cal Poly, once Bashir stepped to that service line, it was just game over from there. And Cal Poly was digging everything. They were preventing USC from scoring by any means. Their defense was strong. And eventually, Emmy Bullis closed off the match with a dump kill. And suddenly, Cal Poly is back in the Sweet 16 as they took the fifth set 15-17. The Mustangs were led by Emma Frederick, who had 17 kills. Kendall Bashir and Annabelle Falcon both had 12 kills. As a team, Cal Poly only hit 214. I think that was based on them starting strong and then slowing down. And then the fifth set, they just caught their second wind. They knew they wanted to be Cinderella. And I'll just say it right now. Cal Poly is the first team in this new bracket format to advance to the first unseeded team in this new bracket format to advance to the Sweet 16. So for them to be unseeded, to knock off two seeded teams, to knock off two teams ranked in the top 25 going into the postseason, and to do that, man, that was outstanding. Congratulations to Cal Poly. That's kind of the reason why I have the text bar green as opposed to like light blue. For USC, they were led by Abigail Mullen, who had 17 kills. She also chipped in 11 digs. So overall, this girl's going to be an All-American. I'm just going to call it right now. Abigail Mullen is going to be a future All-American. Book it. She has the tools in front of her. She came into the spring determined. If she could just continue to stay the course, stay healthy, and just trust Brad Keller, I think Abigail Mullen will be an All-American. London Weejay added 10 kills. Now, Weejay kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start, and for good reason. She's only 5'10", and Cal Poly is a fairly tall team, and they were pretty much diversing her kill shots. And like I said, Cal Poly was digging everything at will for USC. So for London Weejay, the fact that she had 10 kills was pretty darn good. I just think that she got off to a slow start, and then it took her a while to pick it up. And then Leah Ford added 9 kills. Mia Taverdi, she had 8 kills. I think you got to roll with her. If hopefully she stays for USC, which I'm certain she will. I just got to say this for her. I think she's a massive difference maker, and she's earned a spot in terms of the middle blocker rotation. Riley McGinnis added 6 kills. Adanya Famuina, 7 kills. USC hit 232, and they had 12.5 blocks. But the category that kind of got dominated in was the dig department. 67 digs to USC's 58. And then Cal Poly had a better service ace service error ratio, 8 service aces to 9 service errors, while USC had only 5 service aces to 15 service errors. So yeah, USC missed a lot of serves in this match. I was just cringing at the fact that they were just missing so many serves. I'm thinking, look, just because USC's women's volleyball coach is a former men's volleyball player back in his days when LMU had a program doesn't mean the women's volleyball team has to replicate the missed serves of NCAA men's volleyball. But that was only a fragment of the reason why USC lost. That was because they couldn't control Kendall Bashir's topspin serve. They just had no answer for Cal Poly's defense. I thought the Mustangs just had a masterclass altogether. And it's a crummy feeling for USC because they want to get out of the round of 16 or the round of 32, because the past 3 years, I think 2 or 3 years, they had not advanced out of the first round, not out of the second round, which, man, I get it for some years. Like last year, they were at Texas, lost to a very good Texas team. The year before, they were at Pitt, lost to Pitt. and then so on and so forth. But this year, I thought USC had a really good chance. And I'll just say it right now. I picked against Cal Poly, too. I picked USC to advance to the Sweet 16, which it sucks. But, hey, what can you do sometimes? And that's life in the big city. That's a big reason why USC has a young team. And that's another reason why I thought USC kind of struggled, because the youth and experience of facing that type of team, that aggressive team, it just shows that Cal Poly is the real deal. USC is a year or two away. And C, I just think that everyone who did not take Cal Poly seriously or that doesn't know of Cal Poly needs to get with the times, because Cal Poly is the real deal, and they busted everyone's bracket. There are no more perfect brackets in the ESPN bracket challenge. So kudos to Cal Poly. Congratulations to them. And for USC, look, it was a tough year. It was a tough end to the season, but they shattered expectations. They were chosen to finish 5th in the Big Ten. They finished tied for 3rd, which is pretty darn impressive. And they did this with starting 3 freshmen and then 2 redshirt sophomores. And then they only had 2 seniors starting, one of which was a pin hitter. So overall for USC, I think for the women of Troy, they'll be back sooner rather than later. I imagine their next year's recruiting class is going to only get them better and closer to their end game in terms of winning national championships. Because Laylee Ostavar, Addie Cody, just to name a couple, they're going to be key difference makers, especially Ostavar. And USC set. If you saw my the post-game interview that I posted, Brad Keller said you cannot miss on 2 positions in college volleyball. You can't miss on liberos, #justice for liberos, and you also can't miss on setters. USC has their setter and libero for the next 3 years, barring no circumstances whatsoever. And then they can only go up from here, because obviously you can get pin hitters and middles from the transfer portal, aka Mia Taverdi, and so on and so forth. So I think for USC, they are set for the future, barring nobody transfers out. So look, yeah, USC, it sucks, but it's only going to get better. There'll be better days ahead. And this year, they shattered a lot of expectations. They beat teams like Wisconsin on the road, Minnesota on the road. They beat Creighton pretty much way back in the season. They started 5-0 in Keller's tenure for the first time. They got their lick back against UCLA. They nearly beat Penn State, which they probably should have, but I digress. And yeah, I think, and again, the last 4 matches where USC needed to win in order to guarantee them hosting the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament, they wound up coming in clutch. They were able to do just that. They beat Oregon, which was a place they had not won at in over 6 years. They beat Illinois, which was also fighting for their tournament lives, albeit it was at Galen Center. And then they beat Michigan State and Michigan, which it was a chilly place, even though it was indoors, but they were on the road, back east. They were away from their families during Thanksgiving. This USC team will be back. They just need a little bit more experience under their belts, and they just can't start slow against a good team like Cal Poly. So there you have it right there. That is pretty much that for the Los Angeles quadrant. I just got to say, again, thank you to USC. A set point salute to you on letting me attend as a media member. It was just darn awesome. All right, moving on to the other quadrant. So, Nebraska, let's go down from upper left all the way down to bottom right. So, Nebraska swept LIU. Kansas State took down San Diego in 5, which was very good. That one could have gone either way, but the Wildcats proved they belong in the NCAA tournament, and I'm glad they made it as an at-large. Miami took down Tulsa in 4. Kansas swept High Point. Texas A&M swept Campbell. TCU took down Stephen F. Austin in straight sets. Marquette took down Western Kentucky in straight sets. This was not a surprise, and here's why. Marquette being battle-tested was the biggest reason why. I thought Marquette, even though they had such a crummy showing in the Big East Conference, even though they lost in the semifinals, which is a rarity just because they're no more often than not a fixture in finishing in the top 2 in the Big East. Look, Marquette, I thought, was pretty darn good in this match. They just played clean volleyball against Western Kentucky. Then closing off the lower or the upper left bracket, you had Louisville sweeping Loyola Chicago. Jumping down below to the lower left bracket, we had SMU sweeping Central Arkansas. Florida sweeping Rice, Baylor outlasting Arkansas State in 5. I should have figured that Arkansas State was going to be a matchup problem for Baylor because Arkansas State is one of the better teams that aren't from a Power 4 conference. And also, Arkansas State they have a win over Missouri, which was previously ranked, and they wound up winning the Sun Belt Conference, which is not an easy conference to win in. Then you had Purdue sweeping Wright State. You had Minnesota sweeping Fairfield. Iowa State outlasting St. Thomas in 5. That one I thought was kind of surprising, but at the same time, St. Thomas, hailing from Minnesota, did not have to travel a whole lot of way because they were playing at the University of Minnesota. So that's pretty much like a hop, skip, and a jump away. Then you had Michigan taking down Xavier in 3. Again, no surprise here. Michigan was battle-tested. Even though Xavier made the Big East Conference Championship, they weren't as battle-tested as Michigan. Michigan, the fact that they've had a massive turnaround is impressive, even though they did lose their last 2 matches, being to UCLA and USC. And then you had Pitt sweeping UMBC to close off the lower left bracket of the lower left portion of the bracket. To the upper right bracket, we had Texas sweeping Florida A&M, Penn State taking down South Florida in 4, Colorado sweeping American. That was the first match of the NCAA tournament, FYI. You had Indiana sweeping Toledo, Wisconsin sweeping Eastern Illinois, North Carolina taking down UTEP in 4. Now, for those that are saying this is a surprise, it's not a surprise. North Carolina was one of the better teams from the ACC. I know they were the last few in, or the last few in terms of the NCAA tournament, and I know everyone's basically labeling North Carolina as last few team in, a team that was coming in losing 2 out of their last 3, both of which were to Miami, but again, North Carolina was a better team than what the committee did them for. So last 4 in, never heard of it. So great job to North Carolina. Arizona took down South Dakota State in 4. Again, Arizona was another case of this team belonged in the NCAA tournament. Arizona was battle tested. I know South Dakota State lost in the Summit League tournament semifinals, and I know they had a pretty high RPI, but Arizona was battle tested, being from the Big 12. You got to remember this: if Arizona had so much pride on the line, they would not want to see. They would make the most of their NCAA tournament appearance, especially since Arizona wound up missing the NCAA tournament. They were the first few out last year, so for the Wildcats, they wound up performing really well, in my opinion. And then Stanford took down Utah Valley in 4. Everyone was getting pretty excited over Stanford losing the first set to Utah Valley. And then they said, you got to win 3 sets, not 1, 3. And that's pretty much what Stanford did. So that was the upper right portion of the bracket. Closing off the bracket altogether, you had Arizona State sweeping Coppin State, Utah State outlasting Tennessee in 5. This was another surprise. I thought Tennessee was a little bit better than that, especially since they made the SEC tournament semifinals and took a set off Kentucky. But Tennessee, man, if there's one team that I kind of thought underachieved, that was that team. I thought Tennessee actually had a shot of making it to maybe the Sweet 16, but unfortunately that was not the case. They lost to Utah State, but Utah State's a darn good team coming out of the Mountain West. Then Northern Iowa reverse swept Utah. That was a good win right there. I was generally impressed by Northern Iowa showing resolve against the Utes. And unfortunately for Utah, that was actually the last match for Beth Lanier, as she announced yesterday that she was going to be retiring from coaching. So a lot of coaching legends calling it a career, which makes me sad, and it makes me unhappy not meeting Beth Lanier in person. But she coached for 36 years. Absolutely amazing, illustrious career from Beth. I think Utah is still in great hands. And the fact that Utah almost missed out on the NCAA tournament speaks to high volumes, because they needed to come in clutch for the most part. They needed to beat BYU and a few other teams to get in. I think they won 2 of their last 3 to make the NCAA tournament. So that was a huge, 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 huge plus for Utah. Unfortunately, they just ran to one of the better non-Power 5s or better mid-major teams in Northern Iowa. And then you had Creighton outlasting Northern Colorado in 5, which, God, Creighton. I mean, some were saying that the officiating was questionable, but it should never come down to the officials. You have to take care of your side of the net. You got to take care of what you can take care of in terms of the match. And Creighton being at home, I don't want to hear the excuses. Like, if you're saying officiating is questionable, then the team is not adapting and whatnot. So Creighton, great effort from Northern Colorado. I think, if I recall correctly, Northern Colorado was the Final Four team in the NIVC, which is not happening this year, which I'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, I already went over the Los Angeles quadrant, and then UCLA outlasted Georgia Tech in 5. I had no doubt that UCLA was going to beat Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is nowhere near as good as they have been in years past. And if UCLA had so much pride if UCLA had a lot of pride, they knew that after missing the tournament the past 2 or 3 years, they needed to make the most of this NCAA tournament opportunity, and they did so. So congratulations to UCLA. And then closing off, we had Kentucky taking down Wofford in straight sets. Now let's move on to round 2. Nebraska swept Kansas State. Not surprising there. I mean, Kansas State actually made Nebraska work. It wasn't really the cleanest match for Nebraska, but hey, a little adversity never hurts the Huskers, considering they've pretty much just blown by everybody and they have yet to lose a match. So they don't have too much adversity, but personally, I think for Nebraska, they ran into a little adversity, and it's no big deal because now they know what to clean up for the Sweet 16. And their opponent will be Kansas, who took down Miami of Florida in 4. Now, I thought Miami was actually going to win this one just because they have one of the best players in the nation, Flo Marie Heredia-Colon. But Kansas, they came out the gate on fire in the first 2 sets. Miami kind of woke up in the 3rd set, but just could not handle Kansas in set 4. And I believe that 4th set was close, but the Jayhawks, rock chalk, they advanced. And then Texas A&M took down TCU in 4, which I thought was a very good win. I thought that match could have gone either way, especially since TCU came out swinging in the first set. All the sets were decided by 3 points or less. And I think Texas A&M dodged 6 set points in the 4th set to eventually take that 4th set and dodge a 5th set. So congratulations to A&M. Tough one for TCU, but still a great showing for them regardless. And then to close off the upper left portion of the bracket, Louisville outlasted Marquette in 5. I had a feeling Marquette was going to give Louisville some sort of trouble, but that's a little uncharacteristic. Like, this is the 2nd straight year that Louisville needed 5 to get out of the round of 32 against a mid-major as well. Not that I'm saying that Marquette's a bad team. It's just that I think for Louisville, they've been on their A game for the most part, and this is the 2nd straight year that they've needed 5 to escape out of the round of 32. But who knows? Maybe Louisville can replicate what they did last year, where they needed 5 to get out of the round of 32 and they went all the way to the national championship. We'll see, though. Lower left bracket, we had SMU beating Florida in straight sets, which the 3rd set was pretty much SMU using a late run to win in overtime 26-24. I thought Florida was going to win this one, but I guess Florida just couldn't keep it together against SMU on the road. And this is SMU's first ever Sweet 16 appearance. So kudos to Sam Erger, I think her name is. Kudos to SMU and to Coach Sam. That's a massive win right there. And then Purdue took down Baylor in 4. Not surprising there, just because Purdue, they have shattered expectations. And the fact that Baylor needed 5 to beat Arkansas State, even though Arkansas State is good, kind of shows me that Baylor has some inconsistencies, and Purdue kind of exploited some of those. Even though Baylor did force a 4th set by the hair on their chinny chin chins, I just thought that Purdue was just a whole lot more cleaner. And then Minnesota swept Iowa State. Kind of surprising that it was decided in 3, but this Minnesota team has defied the odds and then some. And then they'll face Pitt, which swept Michigan. Again, Michigan, massive turnaround from last year, but against a very good team like Pitt, they weren't going to get out of that round unless they played some of their best volleyball. Upper right bracket, you had Texas. I would say, I hate to use this term, but BTA, Penn State, look, Texas was pretty much dominant, plain and simple. Even though Penn State was the reigning national champs, I just thought Texas was just it felt like Texas was the reigning national champs. And this was just a pretty much nightmarish year for Penn State. Like, man, with all that happened with Penn State, with the whole Izzy Stark thing and so on and so forth, and losing to a bunch of teams that they probably should have beaten, and almost losing to the Ohio State, which was the bottom dweller of the Big Ten. So, man, that was brutal for Penn State. But Texas advances. They'll face Indiana, which swept Colorado. Not too surprising. I mean, Indiana is a very talented team. They've really turned it around quite nicely. And Indiana is in the Sweet 16 for the first time since God knows when. And then Wisconsin swept North Carolina. And then Stanford took down Arizona in 4. For North Carolina, they were in for a tough match. But the fact that they got to round 2 is pretty darn impressive. And they should be happy about this season. And they just got to build off for next year. And then for Arizona, the same thing can be said for them, just because they missed the NCAA tournament. They were their first few out, and then they wound up making the tournament and winning a postseason game. So Arizona went from NIVC champions to making it into the NCAA tournament, to winning an NCAA tournament match, to pretty much having a successful season and proving to everybody that they do belong in the NCAA tournament. And then the lower right bracket, we had Arizona State taking down Utah State in 4, Creighton beating Northern Iowa in 4. I already mentioned Cal Poly beat USC in 5, and then Kentucky beat UCLA in 4. So, again, all chalk except for Cal Poly. Cal Poly is the only unseeded team remaining in the NCAA tournament, which is quite astounding if you ask me. But everything else is pretty much all chalk through the round of 30 or through the round of 32. So now we're in the Sweet 16 or round 3. So that'll pretty much do it. We'll pump the brakes on the Division I portion and circle the wagons back in a little bit. So first and foremost, we got to give a huge congratulations to Wisconsin Oshkosh, which wound up winning the NCAA Division III championship. They wound up taking down Laverne in straight sets. And the crazy thing about Wisconsin Oshkosh is that they did not drop one set all tournament. They pretty much blew by through everybody, which is just unheard of. I've never seen that, if you ask me. I haven't seen anything that dominant since maybe Stanford's run in 2019. So Wisconsin Oshkosh, congratulations. Look, I'm a California guy. I wanted Laverne to win, but Wisconsin Oshkosh just blowing by everybody was just really darn impressive, if you ask me. So I got a lot of respect for Wisconsin Oshkosh. The defense that they played, looking back on the match, was just outstanding. It was just breathtaking. Wisconsin Oshkosh, congratulations on being named national champion. So there you have it for NCAA Division III women's volleyball. I know I didn't really cover it all that much, which is my bad, but it is what it is. I don't want this show to be too long, just because it's already an hour plus as is. So moving on to the NAI Women's Volleyball Championship. That's actually happening right here and now, and it's actually a final result. So Northwestern of Iowa and Indiana Wesleyan were clashing for the championship before the show went on, and in the end, Northwestern wound up beating I think it's still going on. So, whoops. So, anyway, but yeah, both these teams were clashing with one another. So, but looking back at it, Northwestern did sweep Concordia of Nebraska. So you had that right there. And yeah, it was, those two are playing in the national championship, which is pretty nice if you ask me. And I'm glad I have the time to pretty much talk about that. And the match started, and it's still going on right now. I mean, I'm looking at the live stats, but it looks like Indiana Wesleyan is up 2-1 on Northwestern of Iowa. So yeah, just to reiterate, Northwestern of Iowa beat Concordia of Nebraska in straight sets yesterday in the semifinals. And also in the other semifinal, we had Indiana Wiseland outlasting Eastern Oregon in 5, which was pretty cool, if you ask me. I thought Concordia, Nebraska was going to be in the final, but Northwestern is proving that they are a different breed in NAIA women's volleyball. But Indiana Wiseland took the first set 25-23. Northwestern took the second set 23-25. And then Indiana Wiseland took the third set 25-18. Indiana Wiseland actually leads 10-7 in the fourth set. So if they win that set, they are national champions, which is pretty cool if you ask me. So we'll circle the wagons back to that in a little bit. But while that match is going on, let's jump on into Division II. 64 teams were in this tournament, but only 8 remain. So those 8 teams are as follows. You're probably seeing them on screen. You've got Tampa versus Ferris State, MSU Denver taking on Wingate, Concordia St. Paul taking on Gannon, not Ganondorf, Gannon, and then, or not Rich Gannon, Gannon, and then Point Loma taking on Bentley in the other quarterfinal. So this was pretty much reseeded. Tampa is still the #1 overall seed. This Tampa team, I know Tampa is always good in NCAA Women's Volleyball Division II, but this Tampa team, I think, is on a whole other level. They took down Barry, and Barry had a 6'11" player, which was just unheard of. But this Tampa team is built different when it comes to NCAA Women's Volleyball Division II. This Tampa team, I think, is the biggest reason why I think this team, Tampa Bay, should be called Tampa Towns, a Tampa Town Championship City. But I digress. Do you want to know how good Tampa is? They are undefeated. Just like Nebraska in Division I, Tampa is undefeated at 31-0. They went a perfect 20-0 in conference play, which is just unheard of. And again, they beat really good teams like Barry, and Barry has a 6'11" player on their team, which I thought was pretty darn awesome. I kept hearing about it from the 900 Square Feet volleyball newsletter from Lee Feinswong. He does a great job with that, by the way. I got to give him his flowers. So anyway, this Tampa team, I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa wound up winning the whole thing, but that's why you got to play the game. So you got to remember what Texas, I forget what their team name is. I think it's like Texas A&M Christian or Texas Christian or something of that sort. I remember it was a team from Texas. I think it was like Western Texas. But either way, I do remember a Texas team going the distance. West Texas A&M, that's the team. So West Texas A&M, I remember 2 years ago, West Texas A&M pulled off probably the most improbable comeback, coming back down from I think it was 24-18, and then dodging multiple match points in for the fourth set, dodging 2 match points in the fifth set, and rallying back from a 14-12 deficit to win the fifth set, which was just unheard of. Eventually, that West Texas A&M team lost to Cal State LA. This year, in terms of West Texas A&M, they wound up unfortunately losing in the second round. So tough right there, but it is what it is, and that's just life in the big city. But back to this bracket. Yeah, Tampa looks like the heavy favorite. I probably am going to be rolling with them. Maybe Point Loma. That's kind of my dream final. Point Loma versus Tampa. I mean, both Point Loma and Bentley have the same record, so I don't know what to really expect from Point Loma and Bentley, but I'm sure we're going to be expecting greatness. And then Concordia St. Paul Gannon, that one can go either way. I mean, probably Concordia, but I've been wrong before. And then lastly, MSU Denver versus Wingate. Long story short, I think Wingate's probably going to win, but it might be close. But yeah, Tampa, I think it's going to be Tampa winning the whole thing. Tampa is just playing on a whole other level. I just think that they are just too darn good for their good self. So that'll do it for NCAA Women's Volleyball Division II, and that's pretty much going to do it up until we swing things back to the Sweet 16 of Division I. So we're going to take ourselves a quick commercial break. When we come back, we've got some more NCAA Women's Volleyball Division I action, and then we've got some NCAA Men's Volleyball to discuss. So keep it locked here. You're listening to Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Lava.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That gives you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr., and I'm welcoming you to take another lap with the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. Yes, this is the Extra Mile with me and my co-hosts Christopher Lehman and Michael Ward. We talk everything racing from NASCAR to IndyCar to Formula One to limited hydroplanes, endurance racing, the NHRA, and more. So come join us for an hour of great racing talk and a lot of fun as well on the Extra Mile, Thursdays at 8 p.m. only on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we are back with Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows. And that last show, Extra Mile, it's actually not going to be the Extra Mile anymore. It's going to be known to Apex to Asphalt, which I think is a pretty cool name if you ask me. But just want to kind of basically give you that little heads up. So in case you're wondering, well, where's the Extra Mile? Well, it's now going to be known as Apex to Asphalt. So there you have it right there. And let's actually change the color back to the standard light blue just because, well, for starters, you know what? Screw it. Let's just keep it as green. So we'll keep it green in honor of Cal Poly just because what they did was absolutely amazing. So Moving on. So back to Division 1. We'll circle the wagons back to Division 1 right now, and let's make our predictions for the Sweet 16. Who's going to make it to the Final Four next week, and who's going to be sent back in and watching from home? So let's go from upper left all the way down to bottom right. So anyway, so moving on. So first and foremost, we got Nebraska versus Kansas. All right. This one's going to be interesting. I think Kansas can hang with Nebraska, but let's all be honest. Nebraska, I think, even though Nebraska kind of got they had an ugly game against Kansas State, I don't think they're going to have another ugly game like that ever again. And personally, I think this Nebraska team should be able to take down Kansas. And I know Kansas has a very good coaching staff with Matt Ulmer and Matt Worley. But honestly, this Nebraska team is a freaking wagon. There's not much slowing this Nebraska team down. So give me Nebraska to take down Kansas in the Sweet 16. And then their opponent will be either Texas A&M or Louisville. This one, I think, is going to be the match of the Sweet 16. Oh, man. Dan Meskey and his upstart Louisville Cardinals after Danny Busboom Kelly left for Nebraska, taking on Texas A&M. Ooh, man. A&M is good. But Louisville in the postseason, I think, kind of hits a little harder. And I'm going to be 100% honest. I'm going to pick Louisville, but it's because I want to see Danny Busboom Kelly face her old team in Louisville. I think this one will be a 5-set barn burner. I think where this one could be match of the day, whichever day it's going to be played on, whether it's Thursday or Friday. But honestly, I think this matchup is going to be absolutely amazing. So give me Louisville over Texas A&M in a barn burner. Lower left part of the bracket, we have SMU versus Purdue. All right, SMU is in the Sweet 16 for the first time in team history, while Purdue is back in the Sweet 16. So look, with all the uncertainty that Purdue had this year after losing a lot of their top players to the transfer portal, it's actually quite astounding that Purdue is in this situation. It's also the battle of the regional coaches of the year. Sam Erger winning her region, and then Dave Shondell winning his region. So, God, Purdue and SMU is another good matchup, but I'm going to go with Purdue to win this one, and here's why. I think Purdue, with all that they've been through, with all the doubt that they've silenced, I think Purdue is going to be ready for SMU. And I think Purdue has some NCAA tournament experience, and their head coach has been to the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. That said, I don't think it'll be easy by any means. I think SMU is going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at Purdue, but I think Purdue with Kenna Woolard and company will get the job done against the Mustangs. And then we have Pitt hosting Minnesota in the Pittsburgh Regional. All right, so look, Minnesota has been absolutely impressive this season. They've risen above all the challenges. They've lost 4 of their starters to season-ending injuries, and they are in the Sweet 16. That just shows the grit and resolve of this team. And Julia Hansen is a beast, by the way. That said, Pitt is on a mission. They've got Olivia Babcock. There's not a lot of teams that can slow down this Pitt team. So, look, I like Minnesota. I like their story, but I gotta go with the Panthers to win this matchup. And this is no disrespect to Minnesota. I love me some Minnesota. So there you have it. My boy Davidson Crooks pops in the chat room. He says, hit that like button. Thank you, Davidson. I appreciate it. Hit the like button. Help this algorithm grow. Anyway, moving on to the upper right bracket, we have Texas versus Indiana. All right, this is going to be another feel-good matchup. Indiana is in the Sweet 16, but standing in their way of the Elite 8 is Texas. Look, Texas last year wasn't really the best of the bunch. Last year, I think might be, and this is going to be a controversial thing for me to say, might have been their worst Texas team they've had in a minute in terms of women's volleyball. That said, Texas this year is a whole lot better. I think Jarrett Elliott's squad is just on a whole other level. Their young players are just playing just fantastic. And obviously you have Tori Stafford just playing on a whole other level. So give me Texas to take down Indiana. Again, Steve Aird's team has been absolutely impressive, but I just think this is kind of where the buck stops if you're the Hoosiers. It still was a great run, but I think the Longhorns get the win. And then you have Wisconsin versus Stanford in the other portion of the Tech Austin Regional. All right, this one I think is another really good matchup. I think between Texas A&M Louisville and Wisconsin Stafford, this one is going to be like the second best. Here's my thing. Wisconsin has a lot of experience for the most part. I mean, with Charlie Furbringer, I think this team definitely has a lot of flow and momentum offensively, but Stanford's good. Aaliyah Rubin has been on a whole other level. Julia Blashoff has been excellent. Spencer Etzler has been absolutely nails at the libero position. And then Erica Sayer at middle has also been good. This one can go either way, but I'm going to pick Wisconsin. And here's why. I think Stanford has kind of showed me that they are indeed a good team, even though they are starting they only have 2 seniors on the floor and they only have 2 seniors on the team. It's a whole younger team. And that's kind of the reason why I kind of frown upon Wisconsin, or I kind of frown upon Stanford against Wisconsin. But I just think Wisconsin, they've got Mimi Collier. They've got Carter Booth. They've got a lot of firepower. They got Grace Egan, that's her name. They got a lot of firepower. And Charlie Furbringer just makes that offense so amazing. So if Wisconsin didn't have Charlie Furbringer playing, I think it would have been a whole different story. But I'm going to go with Wisconsin over Stanford. I think Wisconsin is just going to bring it, and Kelly Sheffield is going to prove that his team is an Elite 8 team. And then finally, for the lower right portion of the bracket, we've got Arizona State versus Creighton. This one's another good matchup. I mean, Arizona State is hungry for an Elite 8 appearance, while Creighton is trying to make it to its second straight Elite 8 appearance. Here's my thing for Creighton. Ava Martin has been on a tear, but you also got to remember that Arizona State has also looked really good. They wound up winning the Big 12. I don't even think they were chosen to finish first in the Big 12. This Arizona State team has shattered expectations and then some. I mean, Creighton isn't the Creighton from last year when they had Nora Sis and Kendra Waite, but I still think Creighton is just a little better than Arizona State. I think Creighton will go as far as Ava Martin takes them, and Arizona State will take them as far as Noemi Glover takes them. But in the end, I think Creighton pulls off the win. It's going to be close, though. I would not be surprised if that match went 5. I think that Creighton is a good team. I think Arizona State is a great team. I just think Creighton, even with a first-year head coach in Brian Rosen, I think they're gonna get the job done and book another trip to the Elite 8. And then we have the last matchup, and oh man, I'm dreading this matchup. Kentucky taking on Cal Poly, or hosting Cal Poly. All right, Cal Poly is kind of the Cinderella of this whole thing. They are Cinderella. They're the only unranked, unseeded team to make it into the Sweet 16, which I think is absolutely incredible. I think they are one of 2 mid-majors that remains in the tournament, and I think that is correct because it's Creighton and Cal Poly. So, look, Cal Poly, they could do whatever they want. They are playing with house money here. They're on the road. They are proving to everybody that they belong in the NCAA tournament. Nobody picked them to go farther than round 2. I would be surprised if Cal Poly got demolished. I think Cal Poly is going to give everything they can handle against Kentucky. But in the end, I think Cal Poly is their run ends. I think Kentucky will win this. And I'm going to break down more of this matchup tomorrow when I'm a guest on Cats Talk Wednesdays with Terry Brown and Vinny. Vinny Hardy. Vinny Hardy, that's his name. Terry Brown and Vinny Hardy. And that is going to be live on BS3 Network. So if you have Roku, definitely watch it. So, yeah, I'll break down Kentucky Cal Poly a little bit further. But in the end, I got Kentucky advancing past Cal Poly. It does my heart no good to pick against Cal Poly. I love Cal Poly. I love the Big West. I hate having to pick against Cal Poly. But look, Kentucky other than Nebraska, Kentucky has been on a tear. Not much has slowed down this Kentucky team. So I got to go with Kentucky over Cal Poly. I don't want to hear it from Cal Poly fans. I don't want to hear it from any other fans. I won't pick Cal Poly as a lock out of respect for them just because they're the only unseeded team remaining in this tournament. And I think picking them as a lock to advance, or picking Kentucky as a lock to advance, is very cruel if you ask me. And I think that's the coward's way out. So there you go. So in the Elite Eight, I would have Nebraska versus Louisville, a.k.a. the Danny Busboom-Kelly matchup. Danny Busboom-Kelly would face her former Louisville team. But honestly, even though Louisville is a good team, I think Nebraska has the formula to beat the Cardinals. Again, there's not many teams that have been able to slow down Nebraska, and Louisville's not going to be one of those teams. So I'm going to take Nebraska to advance to the Final Four. I'd be generally surprised if they wound up losing. And some are actually thinking that Louisville, being under the tutelage of Dan Meskey, who is the former assistant for Danny Busboom-Kelly, some are thinking that the script has been leaked out and that Louisville is going to be the one to take down the Dragon. But until I see a team beating Nebraska, I'm picking Nebraska to go to the Final Four. And they're too good to lose on their home floor. I would be generally shocked if they lost at the Bob, but I digress. Then next up, you have Purdue taking on Pitt. All right, this one is okay. I wouldn't say this is kind of obvious, but Purdue's a good team. Purdue has shattered expectations. Purdue, I thought, was going to be taking a step back based off of all of the roster turnover. That being said, this team has really shattered expectations, and I would not expect any less for them to advance to the Elite Eight. That said, Pitt still has Olivia Babcock, and I definitely can't bet against her unless she's facing a team like Nebraska. So give me Pitt to advance over Purdue. I'm not saying that because I've ragged on Purdue. I'm saying that because I think Pitt is a matchup nightmare for the Boilermakers. So give me the Panthers over the Boilermakers to advance to the Final Four. Then we have Texas versus Wisconsin in the Austin Regional Final. All right, this one I think is going to be fun. I think Texas-Wisconsin is going to be pure cinema. I think no matter who Texas draws between Stanford and Wisconsin, I think it's going to be cinema regardless. That being said, this Texas team is rejuvenated. This team is revitalized. I would not be surprised if Texas wound up advancing to the Final Four. I would not be surprised if Wisconsin or Stanford, whichever team wins that matchup, gives Texas a hard time. Because you got to remember, Stanford nearly beat Texas, but I think Texas advances to the Final Four. I have Wisconsin advancing to the Elite Eight to take on Texas, but I got Texas beating Wisconsin. I think no matter who Texas draws, I think with Torrey Stafford on their team, nothing's going to really get in their way. And plus, they have a fairly senior-laden group, so I think for Texas, this is kind of their moment to shine, and they got to reestablish themselves back into the Final Four conversation. And then lastly, we have Kentucky versus Creighton, the Battle of the Royal Blue. All right, so here's my thing for Kentucky. Kentucky is a good team. Creighton is a good team, but I just think Kentucky checks off more of the boxes with Eva Hudson and Brooklyn DeLay. Then you also got Asia Thigpen and Lizzie Carr. And look, as good as Creighton has been, and as much as I would like to see a mid-major in the Final Four, I got to go with Kentucky. Kentucky has been everything and more this season. They might be the best chance to knock off Nebraska. And that says a lot just because no team has had the answer for Nebraska. I mean, personally, if you all saw my bracket, you all will see who I have winning. But in the end, I think Kentucky advances to the Final Four. I know the Final Four will be all one seeds. I know it'll be all chalk. I know it'll be boring, in my opinion. But honestly, Nebraska, who's slowing down? Not much is slowing down Nebraska. Pitt, I don't think will get slowed down by either SMU or Purdue. Texas, I don't think will get slowed down by a young Stanford team or Wisconsin, especially with the defense that they play. And then Kentucky should be able to handle either ASU or Creighton. I mean, personally, I think Creighton advances, but you never know with the Sun Devils. So I think that's my Final Four. All the 1 seeds advance: Nebraska, Pitt, Texas, and Kentucky. All right, that is my predictions right there. Let me know who you all think is going to be advancing to the Final Four. I mean, personally, that's just my opinion. And sometimes I'm often wrong, but I doubt it. All right, that is that for the NCAA women's volleyball side of things. Now let's jump on into some NCAA men's volleyball. So last week, we had a massive bombshell dropped as Alan Knipe was stepping down at the end of this calendar year as Long Beach State's men's volleyball head coach. But his replacement was reportedly and assumingly Nick McCray. That wasn't official last Monday, but the day after, it was announced that it was 100% official. Nick McCray is officially the new head coach at Long Beach State in terms of their men's volleyball team. Kind of not surprising. I mean, I would have been shocked if they went with someone else. McCray is a fantastic fit. He's an alum. He's a former ABCA Assistant Coach of the Year. He learned from Alan Knipe. He played for Alan Knipe. He bleeds the black and gold for Long Beach State. So this is the perfect choice. I don't think they could have done any better. My only thing is, will Long Beach State be able to hire another assistant coach? Because they do have McKay Smith, but Andy Reid also retired. No, not Andy Reid, the football coach. Andy Reid, spelled R-E-A-D. He retired, and I think they've got Amir Lugo. I forget this last part of his name. I think it's Amir Lugo Rodriguez, I think. I'm not entirely certain. But either way, I expect another assistant coach to come on. And John Perry's kind of their statistical analyst and their stat guy and whatnot. But in their data analyst, I think he's the data analyst. But either way, I expect Long Beach State to hire another assistant coach as well. So, yeah, but this was kind of expected news. I mean, we didn't want to officially jump the gun and say McCray was going to be officially the head coach, but he's now official. It's officially official. So Nick McCray is the new head coach of Long Beach State men's volleyball. Speaking of coaching carousels and coaching NCAA men's volleyball announcements, last Thursday we had another bombshell of a coach announcing a move as Mark Pavlik announced that the 2026 season will be his last season as Penn State's men's volleyball coach. So Mark Pavlik is an outstanding coach. He's not only an outstanding coach, but he's a great guy overall. He's just all class, in my opinion, and he's just a great person overall. You just love to be around him. You love to talk volleyball with him. He gets a lot out of his players, and it's going to be tough to see him step down. So this year is basically the final year that he's going to be coaching, and he's coached for a long minute. Like, he's coached Penn State to a national championship. He's coached a lot of his players to the pros. He's just an advocate for NCAA men's volleyball, and he and Alan Knipe are pretty much my two pillars of amazing dudes off the volleyball court. So Mark Pavlik it's going to be tough to see Penn State without Mark Pavlik, but I'm hoping Penn State gives him one last farewell tour, and I can't wait to see Mark Pavlik and Penn State when the Nittany Lions play at USC. So there's that bit of news right there, and you kind of got to wonder who's going to be his replacement. Like, maybe it's going to be it's probably going to be like Long Beach State, where it's going to be one of their assistants, but Penn State and its men's volleyball coaches, they definitely have a lot of choice in terms of their roster, in terms of their coaching staff. I think that they've got a lot of good options to replace Alan, or to replace Mark Pavlik. I think it's going to be tough to replace Mark Pavlik at the end of the season. It'll be really weird to not see Mark Pavlik after this season, but Pav is just all class. I mean, you've got Ryan, aka Rock Perot, who I think can definitely be a good replacement as head coach. You've also got Colin McMillan, who's the associate head coach, Pat Shawarin, who is the assistant head coach. I think it'll probably be Ryan Perot, just because he was the former Purdue Fort Wayne men's volleyball coach, and he took that team to pretty much good heights for the most part. So, Yeah, I'd put my money on The Rock, aka Ryan Perot. All right, but that's that little bit of news right there. So you have that right there, and then let's jump on into some more NCAA men's volleyball news. So it is officially official. The MPSF, the first ever MPSF men's volleyball media day, is slated for Monday, December 15th. Let me just fix that real quick. Monday, December 15th at the Costa Mesa Marriott in Costa Mesa, California. And boom. Yeah, December 15th at Costa Mesa Marriott in Costa Mesa, California. The official start time is at 9:30 a.m. and it'll go to 3 p.m. Pacific time. It'll also be televised on Big Ten Plus. But for your boy, I'm going to be in attendance, no doubt about it. I am going to be bringing my A game. I'm going to be doing some off-the-side interviews with these coaches and players. It's going to be electric. I got to get me some content so I could post on my TikTok, so I could post on my X and my Instagram and get my name up. So there you have it right there. So it's going to be fun. So look, I am absolutely stoked for this. I'm glad it's pretty much in close distance and it's not like in Los Angeles or in Provo, Utah or Northern California. No offense to those locations, but honestly, I'm happy that it's going to be in Costa Mesa just because it's not too much of a drive for me. And this was released courtesy of the MPSF, Darren Preston. So here's the lineup in terms of the whole media day. So first on the podium will be the MPSF Commissioner, Fody Mellis. Then the first teams to be on the podium from 9:40 to 10 a.m., Vanguard with Brian Rofer and Logan Freeman. And then after that is William Jessup with their head coach, Kyle Steele, and Colin Marks, along with CJ Osahan. And then afterward, it's UC Merced with Chris Carter, and then Caleb Cole and Mason Stokes. After that, it's Pepperdine with Jonathan Winder and Jacob Riley. Then it's USC with Jeff Nygaard and Dylan Klein. And then it's lunchtime after USC is on the podium. And then it's an hour lunch. So it's 11 a.m. all the way to 12:45 p.m. So nice little hour lunch in the middle. And then resuming at 1 p.m. Pacific time, all the way to 1:20, is Stanford's John Costi, the head coach, and Teran Rodriguez, the athlete. And then after that is UCLA's John Hawks, the head coach, along with Andrew Rowan, Zach Rama, and Sean Kelly. And then after that is BYU's Sean Olmstead. And then you got Trent Moser, Jackson Fife, and Tyler Herget. And then after BYU is Menlo with their head coach, Ali Kachohu, and their athlete, Josh Friedman. I think I know him. I'll have to confirm if it's actually the same Josh Friedman. But anyway, then closing off the MPSF Media Day is Concordia's John Girton as head coach and Connor O'Rourke. So that's pretty much the lineup right there. Media people, NCAA men's volleyball media people, we got to unite. We got to go down to this event. I'm going to be there, no doubt about it. If you can only make it through Zoom, go to Zoom. Reach out to Darren Preston. I'm going to be there, and I am going to be filming interviews off to the side. So I'm excited for this, and I'm excited for more big things for Set Point, just because I'm trying to go to these events, trying to get my content, trying to get the views up, and trying to represent IE Sports Radio as well. So there you have it. And with that, there's one more thing I got to go over, and then I'll let you all go. So USC did release its men's volleyball schedule, and you're probably wondering, well, so have the other teams, Teran. Why does that matter? Sorry. The reason being is because USC released their schedule, and on that schedule is them playing 2 matches at the Honda Center, which means they are the last team to be in the NIL tournament. So the NIL tournament is going to consist of UCLA, USC, Long Beach State, and Hawaii. So that's 2 MPSF teams and 2 Big West Conference teams, kind of like the Final Four from the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament. So, man, That's going to be a fun little tournament right there. I think Long Beach State, I speculate, will be the 1 seed, and then maybe USC will be the 2 seed of the tournament, and then the 3 seed will be Hawaii, and then the 2 seed will be UCLA. That's how I'm projecting it to be. Maybe it'll be vice versa. I don't think it's going to be the Big West Conference teams facing one another in the first round, or maybe it will. Who knows? But man, that NIL tournament is going to be electric. UCLA is the finalist from last year's National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament. Long Beach State and Hawaii. Hawaii was the quarterfinal or the semifinalist. Long Beach State's the reigning national champion, and USC is a good fit for them for this tournament, just because they return a good amount of their team. I think their team is promising. They've got players like Dylan Klein returning, and then Caleb Blanchett, Sterling Foley, Parker Tompkinson, and so on and so forth. This team is going to look really good, and I think they're the perfect fit for the NIL tournament. I think they are a very promising team. And you got to remember, they were a team that should have made the NCAA tournament if the tournament was more expanded. This is where you wish you had more teams in the tournament. This is where teams like UC Irvine should have made the tournament. USC should have made the tournament. And some other teams like maybe Ohio State or McKendree or so on and so forth. But I digress in that regard. I'm just excited to see USC this season. USC's got an interesting schedule. I want to say that their first true test isn't going to be until they face CSUN. The first part of the schedule, I think, is going to be an interesting part. I think they should go through it for the most part, but I think Princeton could also be a challenge just because Princeton loves to go out west to start the season. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with USC this year, but I think it's another promising season for the Trojans. I think they could definitely challenge the likes of Pepperdine and UCLA in the MPSF. They're not going to be traveling too much, as I think their only road trip out of the state of California is going to be when they play at BYU, which I think is going to be pretty cool if you ask me. But USC will be traveling the least amount of miles of all the NCAA men's volleyball teams this season. So I also got to make note, speaking of the NCAA men's volleyball season, we're only a month away, maybe even less than a month away from the 2026 NCAA men's volleyball season. And it's crazy to think that because we're already nearly through 2025 altogether. So I think it's going to be fun and exciting. I can't wait to bring you all the NCAA men's volleyball action. I'm going to do my darndest to bring you all the content and bring you the fans, what you want and what you need, because this NCAA men's volleyball season is going to be the year where it takes off, and it's also going to be the year where Set Point gets its name out there, truly out there. But on that note, that is going to do it for the NCAA men's volleyball portion of the show. And also happening soon is the MLV and the LOVB, as they've actually got some preseason. LOVB has some preseason matches, and then we also have we have the Orlando Valkyries going overseas to take on a lot of good teams, international teams, which let's just say, let's not overreact here real quick. Let's not overreact to if they win or lose. Anyway, so before we close off, we got to circle the wagons back to the NAI Women's Volleyball National Championship, where Indiana Wesleyan took down Northwestern of Iowa in 4 sets. So congratulations to Indiana Wesleyan on winning the NAI Women's Volleyball National Championship. They wound up winning the 4th set 25-19. As Indiana Wesleyan was led by Eva Joldersma, who had 20 kills. Marissa Mullins added 15 kills, and then Shay Williams added 14 kills. As a team, Indiana Wesleyan hit 260. They didn't have a service ace. It only missed 4 serves. And they had 9 blocks as a team, and then they had 74 digs. Northwestern of Iowa was led by Stella Winterfeld, who had 20 kills, while Riley Franken added 10 kills. Northwestern hit 195. They did have 6 service aces to only 5 service errors, and they did have 79 digs, and they also had 9 blocks as a team. So even though Northwestern didn't really have, they really had most of the other stats on lock, they just didn't really have the hitting percentage on lock. So congratulations to Indiana Wesleyan on winning the national championship. Great job to them, and kudos to Northwestern for making it far all the way to the national championship. So just like that, NCAA women's volleyball women's volleyball season as a whole is starting to wind down really quick. I know I didn't really touch upon NAIA women's volleyball a whole lot, but again, we're almost 90 minutes into this show, so I don't want the show to go too long. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Enjoy all the volleyball action. Thank you all for tuning in. I really do appreciate you. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on a playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you in a lot. I'll be back next week, and keep an eye out for some more content. One last thing. I do got to show some of my photos here in terms of the NCAA women's volleyball tournament. So here was the Cal Poly, one of the Cal Poly teams. Here was the Cal Poly team after the match, and here was another on the court. So you had that right there. I had to get a picture of them. And then here was the BYU team after their post-game press conference. Definitely check out that post-game press conference. I know I kind of got the photo at the last second. So in case you're wondering why Heather Olmstead isn't smiling all that much, well, I kind of unfortunately I kind of got the picture at the last second, but there you go. And then there's pretty much the display board where the final score is Cal Poly winning set 5, 15-7. And then you look at that NCAA display board. Champions win here. Thank you for attending. Thank you for having me again, Set Point. And then this last photo is, I know it's kind of cut off, but it's a picture of me and Danny Busboom Kelly back when Nebraska played at USC. She gave a little thumbs up, which I thought was pretty funny. So she is one of the few coaches that I've interviewed this season that is still alive in the NCAA tournament. So there you have it right there. Just wanted to show those little photos. But until next week, have yourself a great rest of the week. Enjoy all the volleyball action. Season's winding down in terms of the women's side of things, but men's season is right around the corner. I will see you next week. And once again, keep an eye out for the content on Set Point. Good night, everybody. Peace and blessings.